All right, I've got a brand new training for you on social media marketing agency, and today we're talking about how to sign your first client in 30 days using the power of social media. Now, this is probably the most updated method of acquiring social media clients, and the great thing is it is completely free and you can get started right now. Literally after this video, you're gonna have tangible tools that are going to allow you to go ahead and reach out to clients on social media in a very effective way, because we're not just talking about outreach and sending out messages, you'll see in just a bit, and also sign these clients. So very excited for this, and here are the 4 sections that we are going to cover. Number 1, I'm going to talk about the mere exposure effect, a very cool psychological concept that is going to prelude to all the stuff that we're going to talk about. Number 2, we're going to talk about what we're actually going to do. Number 3 is how does it actually work? And number 4, I'm going to give you some content ideas that you can post on social media to attract clients to you, to get clients coming to you. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, the false concept is the mere exposure effect. And the reason why it's incredibly important to talk about this is because one of the great things about reaching out to clients on social media is the fact that we're cultivating this relationship, right? So we're not just sending one message and it stops there. Like for example, with email, you send one email, right? And they don't know who you are. You haven't built any rapport. You don't have a connection with this person. And so if they don't answer that email, it's done, right? There's no way to cultivate that relationship. And so what we're doing with social media is we're cultivating relationships, we're building rapport. And that is why it's so incredibly effective, because we're acting like real human beings and we're cultivating this relationships that then lead to business relationships. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to understand, that we're cultivating these relationships. But let me explain cultivation a bit more in depth. I'm gonna hop on my computer right now. So cultivating explained. Now, as I mentioned, the first thing that we need to understand is the mere exposure effect. What is this thing, right? Essentially, it's a psychological phenomenon by which people tend to develop a preference for things merely because they're familiar with. So we see something, we start to develop a preference for it, and thus we prefer that thing. For example, this is probably not the best example that I could have picked, but it's the one that came to my mind. When you go to a restaurant and the menu is completely random, right? And the menu is just something that you've never really seen, some foods and dishes that you've never really seen. You're probably going to be drawn to a dish that you've either tried, that you've either seen, something that is familiar to you. Obviously, you can go ahead and try something that's completely new out of the blue, right? But most people will go for that familiar dish simply because of the mere exposure effect. Maybe when they were young, their family used to cook that dish all the time, right? And so they developed a preference for it, and they're going to feel attracted way more to that dish, right? They've actually done a lot of studies on how mere exposure effect affects interpersonal attraction. And essentially, they've seen that the more often you see a person, the more pleasing and likable they find that person, right? So the more they see that person, the more pleasing and likable they find that person. It's definitely happened to me, right? When I used to go to school, I would have all my classes with this one person. Maybe you're watching this, Cassie, but we developed a really good relationship and a really good friendship, which started off just because we were in the same class all the time. So we developed a preference for each other. Now, obviously, bear in mind, this person was someone that I could resonate with, etc., etc. But part of it was seeing this person every single day in every single class. So I developed a preference for this person, and we got along, and we're still really good friends to this day. So that's the mere exposure effect having an incredible impact on interpersonal relationships. And then what you need to understand is repetition, right? So simple and constant repetition is enough to make a memory trace in the consumer's mind and unconsciously affect their consuming behavior. And you'll see how this plays a really big role when it comes to reaching out on social media. And the reason why I say that is because through the use of content, you're going to get in front of prospects in your specific e-com sub niche, right? We're going to be tapping into the mere exposure effect to influence decision making, right? Because they're seeing you so often on their feed, they're seeing your profile, they're seeing your follow-up messages, right? They develop a preference for you. And so when they think about e-commerce growth in that specific sub niche, they're going to think about you, right? When they think of a person to help them grow online, they think of you. Now, by having this top of mind awareness, the follow-up messages land better and convert higher because they have built familiarity with you during the past few days and weeks, potentially even months, right? Some of the clients that I've gone on to sign, we developed that relationship on social media for months, right? And these were some of the biggest deals that I've ever signed. And obviously, they took a bit longer. They took more rapport building, but they came to fruition because I was constantly in front of these people, building authority, showing that I was really good at my craft, showing that I was an expert in their specific sub niche, right? Which is very important. You might think, well, a lot of people are posting content. Sure, but that is broad content. When you post content in a specific sub niche within ecom, whether it's apparel and fashion brands, right? When you post content within a specific sub niche, then you've got a really strong advantage. And the final thing is we're not having to exert force and almost beg prospects to jump on a call, right? If you started your agency and you've done your first round of outreach, it just feels like you're begging these people, right? You're constantly just going at these people. It feels like you're almost begging them to jump on a call with you, right? And it's exhausting. It can get very, very exhausting, especially because maybe you don't even have an irresistible offer. So, the messages don't even land very well, right? They don't convert very high. And so it's very exhausting. Yet when you use this approach that we're going to talk about in just a second, right? When you use the social media profile funnel approach, you get prospects coming to you because the authority does a lot of the speaking for you. Okay, the content does a lot of the speaking for you. The profile that you've got, that you're building, does a lot of the speaking for you. Okay, so showing our value and expertise through the content builds up our authority, and it's this concept, power versus force. And there's a book on it. Honestly, I would just read a summary because it does. It does have one single concept that you need to understand, but and that's often the case with a lot of self-help books. But essentially, the concept is when you are in a mindset of force, right? You're forcing things to happen. You're pushing this big rock, right? Whereas if you are in a position of power, right? In this specific scenario, right? Things come to you. Prospects will come to you. The content does the validation and the authority for you, right? You're not constantly having to beg or validate yourself, your service, okay? So that is a bit about cultivating explained. But before we get into the next section, if you're enjoying this so far and you're finding maybe a bit of value out of it, go ahead and drop a massive thumbs up on the video. Helps out with the algorithm, the whole channel. I'd really appreciate it. And with that being said, let's get back into it. In this second section, we're going to talk about what we're actually going to do to make this work. And so the first thing that you're going to do, if you haven't done so already, you want to make sure you pick a sub niche within the e-com space. And the reason why you want to do that, there's a bunch of different benefits. I've talked about them on my channel already, but one of the main benefits, especially for social media outreach, is the fact that if you don't, okay, you're going to get drowned out by other people posting content in the broad e-com space. Okay, so when you pick a sub niche, whether it's apparel and fashion, right? I'm picking that example as for this video, right? If you pick that sub niche, then you can post content specifically for that sub niche. And you might think, well, then I'm not going to get as many likes. Because by nature, that sub niche is small, right? We don't care about the likes, right? We don't care about the total reach. We care about reaching, in this case, apparel and fashion founders and getting in front of them with this content. That, I can assure you, is going to produce a lot more revenue and growth for your business than having a general niche where you're getting a bunch of likes from people who are not really qualified. Okay? So keep that in mind. What we're then going to do is we're going to pair our outreach and follow-up messages with a really solid profile and a really solid content strategy. So that's a bit about what we're gonna do. Now, how does this actually work? First of all, you're gonna reach out to prospects on social media with your irresistible offer. Make sure that you have an irresistible offer. I've talked about the different components of an irresistible offer in previous videos, okay? But make sure that you have an irresistible offer, because if you don't, and you have the typical offer of, hey, let's jump on a call and discuss further and see how I can add value to your business, that's probably going to land on deaf ears, okay? So make sure you have an irresistible offer and start reaching out to prospects within your specific sub niche on Facebook, LinkedIn, and with Instagram, you want to use the cold IG video intro method, okay? Which I talked about in this video right here. You can check it out after this video. Make sure that you complete this video first before moving on to that one, but you're going to reach out to prospects on social media. Next, you're going to go ahead and you're going to add them as a connection on LinkedIn or as a friend on Facebook. Very important that you add them as a connection or a friend, ideally even before reaching out, right? But make sure that you add them as a connection, because otherwise they won't be able to see the content that we're going to post that's going to cultivate that relationship after you've sent that initial message, as well as the follow-ups. When it comes to Instagram, it's harder to get a follow back from a prospect simply because there's more friction there. When it comes to, for example, a connection or a friend request, all they got to do is accept, right? They don't actively have to follow you back, right? Whereas with Instagram, they can accept your follow, but that doesn't mean that they're going to follow you back, right? And so with Instagram, the whole game is making sure that one, you have an optimized profile, which we'll talk about in just a bit, but also story highlights so that they can check the story content that you're posting on a daily basis without having to follow you on a daily basis. So that's a really key component to use in Instagram. The next thing you're going to do is make sure that your profiles are optimized. What does that mean? Make sure you have a clear agency mission on your profiles, on the bio or on the description, whatever applies for the platform you're using. Make sure you have a really solid profile picture. You don't have to be, in a suit, right? It could just be very, casual clothing. Have this profile picture speak about the nature of your work, right? You don't have to be on the the typical cringy entrepreneur laptop picture, right? You could, if you want it, right? You could maybe be on a whiteboard explaining things or whatever it is, right? But make sure that that profile picture ideally speaks about the nature of your work, and also make sure, especially for Instagram and LinkedIn, make sure you've got a banner in place that again states your agency mission, okay? And maybe if you've got some certifications or awards, state that in there. because it's going to build quite a bit of authority. So that's the next thing you want to do, optimize your profile. And the final thing, now it's time to tap into the mere exposure effect by posting content on the feed that's specific to your sub niche, so that the prospects you've actually reached out to within that specific sub niche can then see the content that applies specifically to them, right? And so with that being said, let's get straight into the next section, which is all about the content that you should be posting, which might actually surprise you. So let's get straight into it. Now, when it comes to the content on social media, I could talk about this for hours on end. In fact, I do so in my private mentorship, but I'll talk about 3 specific content types that I think are tremendously useful and that are going to allow you to post content at scale without having to slave away for hours on end. Okay. And that's a really big thing that I want you to take away. Number 1, you don't need thousands of followers to have a lot of success with this method. Some of my mentees literally have hundreds of followers and are still booking in a lot of demo calls. What matters is that you specialize in a specific sub niche and you're consistent with it. Okay? A lot of times when it comes to the social media content side of things, at first it feels like you're pushing a pretty big rock, right? But then you start getting momentum because now you have a bunch of people that are following your profile, right? You've got a bunch of people that are validating what you're posting, right? Which also builds your authority. Now you get better at posting content because you know what people resonate with, and the list goes on, right? And so you can literally get results in 30 days, but in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, you'll see that this rock just gets lighter and momentum keeps building. So that's the first thing that I want you to keep in mind. You don't have to have thousands of followers. Also, you don't need to slave away, hours on end, right? Every single day, writing posts and all that stuff, right? We can be smart about it. And the final thing is you don't have to post every single day. You could, okay? But as long as you're posting 3 to 4 times a week, that is really solid. So now to the type of post. 3 main posts, okay? Number 1 is value posts. What you want to do is you want to talk about a specific topic and you want to relate it to the specific sub niche. For example, apparel and fashion brands. 5 killer interest targeting for apparel and fashion brands, or 5 ways that you can make your apparel and fashion brand stand out in 2021. Okay, those are just some examples of value posts. Now, the second type you want to do is results post. Okay, now what I mean by this is you go ahead and you post the results that you're getting for your clients. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, I don't have any clients. What am I going to post, right? It literally could just be you. Hit your phone, right? And you go, just looking at the ads manager today, right? And coming up with new targeting for the apparel and fashion space, right? Or it could be writing a bunch of killer ad copy for apparel and fashion brands. Ad copy is such an underrated part of an ad, and most apparel and fashion brands are not utilizing. Here are 3 tips, right? Again, results. What I mean is you don't have to post how much you're spending on ads and the return that you're making clients. If you don't have clients, you could just document what you're doing, right? And showing them that, sure, it's not results, right? But showing them that you are in the trenches. And the final thing I want you to keep in mind on the results post side of things is it doesn't have to be the greatest result, right? You don't have to have generated 100K or 1 million for your clients to be able to post it. Little wins, right? Maybe a 3x ROAS or a 4x ROAS. I'm explaining that. But doing that consistently is what actually makes a big difference. So that's the second type of post. And the third one, and you might be surprised by it, is lifestyle/personal posts, okay? So a picture with your girlfriend or boyfriend, a picture of you traveling, a picture of you just chilling at home, right? A picture of you going to church, a picture of you with your family, a picture of you having dinner, a picture, whatever it is, right? You want to make sure that you show that human side to you. Because in the world that we live in today, and I mentioned this in a bunch of videos, but in the world that we live in today, right, the line between personal and business is very blurred, okay? And so people are posting their professional accomplishments on social media, right? And more than ever, people that are buying into brands, people that are buying into agencies, they want to see that personal side of things, right? They want to see who you truly are. The second benefit, amazing benefit to posting personal pictures is that you can actually use that to connect on a deeper level with a prospect that may not have been bought yet, right? That may need that little push over the fence. So when they see you going to church, for example, they could relate to you on a religion level, right? Or when they see you traveling to, Capri, right? They could relate to that and ask you how the trip went, right? And that they always wanted to go to Capri, right? So my point is you want to make sure that you post those lifestyle pictures and those personal pictures, because that only gives you more chances to connect on different levels with prospects that may need that little push to become a client. And so I don't want to stress this out for too long, but that is that for this video. That is how to sign a client within 30 days using social media, completely free method, a very effective method where you're not having to so much beg for the close, but you build authority, right? You have that top of mind awareness. And quite frankly, that's the way I run my agency, right? In most cases, I use the profile funnel to let it do the speaking for me, right? And the other massive benefit of it, which I didn't mention, is the fact that you can actually scale this up, right? Because on a single day, especially maybe in 2-3 months from now, where you have a bunch of people within that funnel, within that profile funnel, seeing your content, getting your follow-up messages, right? That means you could be reaching hundreds of qualified prospects you've already started a conversation with on a daily basis, instead of just reaching out to 10 people via email, right? So in terms of scalability, it has so much more potential. So that is that for this video. Now, if you enjoyed it, go ahead and drop a massive thumbs up. Helps out a ton with the algorithm, the whole channel, and I'd really appreciate it. If you don't want to miss upcoming free trainings on social media marketing agency, go ahead and sub to my channel, hit the little bell icon. And the final thing is I'm going to leave on the screen another video that you might want to check out on signing e-com clients for your agency, a very powerful video. So go ahead and check it out. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.